Hello, World Civ 107. Welcome to week 15. We are almost done, and this is the last week we have of work. So, I just once again I want to just congratulate all of you on really being able to push forward despite the fact that there's been so much distractions. And I want to keep encouraging everyone at this point, while we have the time, to turn in that late work for me. I want to quickly say as well that if you've communicated with me and I never responded, whether it's been an email, Canvas, writing me to Canvas, or a message in one of your grading in your papers, or a phone call, every once in a while it's possible that somehow I missed it or forgot about it or something happened. So I just want to make sure that as we fall into the end of the semester, that none of you are going to get a grade. Despite how happy you are with the grade, I want you to not feel like that you have something unfairly that happened to you, that the grade is fair, that you earned the grade that you have, and that I did my part for you. And fixed anything that was problematic, mistake from me, anything. Okay, so please communicate with me if there's something like that you need to address. We just covered a. Oh wait! Before I talk about topics, one more thing. When you look at your grades, keep in mind that there are some assignments that are from previous classes that Canvas has not erased, and that's an issue I still need to deal with. The only assignments you ever need to have pulled off doing were the ones that were set up in each module for each week. Okay, so just want to make that clear as well. So now returning to the topic, we went over a very, very controversial topic, and one that could also be very confusing: the Israel-Palestine conflict. I feel like most of you have a pretty decent handle on it. There were some ways that sometimes it was articulated that I wanted to kind of rein in or balance out. But overall, I think you all did well. And I just want to be clear on this, that I think it's a very important conflict to understand. And maybe, and it might seem confusing why we should actually even care as much, being that it's over there and we're over here, and what does it have to do with us? Well, there's several things. One, in America, Protestant evangelical Christians tend to be extremely supportive of Israel, and they see the creation of Israel as linked to the end times. And instead of studying the actual conflict in the way that we just studied it, they're looking at it through a kind of biblical lens, and they're seeing the end of the world and the return of the Messiah, of Jesus coming, all linked to this. Now, I'm not into trying to critique anybody's religious beliefs, but I do think that approach, by not studying the actual history and looking to the religious aspect, is supporting, has been very unhelpful in the kind of things that are supported in the conflict. The United States government also we're the number one military aid recipient. Israel is. We send most of our aid to Israel out of any other country. And Egypt is our second largest military aid recipient, mainly because we give money to the military dictatorship in Egypt and help them maintain their power, to be honest, because they've promised that they won't attack Israel. So that's our foreign policy involvement is very much wrapped around this relationship. And what I'm merely trying to say is that the United States, as our nation, is highly invested in the conflict. We have our cultural, we have some of our religious elements rooted in America that are not even Jewish. This is the Christian groups that are heavily invested, and there are many Jewish American groups that also are quite invested. And so within the Middle East, it's very clear cut to most countries that the Palestinians are in the right. And so in that part of the world, it's a very clear-cut case that they see the United States and Israel linked together in this conflict of oppression against Palestinians. And so what I've tried to do for all of you is, regardless of what your position is on this, to understand the scope of it and to get to the heart of understanding the roots behind it, that it's not this ancient biblical conflict, but it's rooted in modern history and an unresolved set of problems, right, that are more political than religious, okay? Even though religion is a part of it. So now we move into the making of the modern Middle East and, what we're covering this week. Now, I left out many, many important things because there's just too much to cover. I didn't talk about Turkey. Turkey is a major player in the Middle East. I didn't really develop a lot of discussion about the Kurdish problem / question, which is a very huge topic that spills over into Turkey, spills into Iraq, spills into Syria, and even into Iran. I didn't talk about some of the other conflicts as much that spill into the broader Middle East conflict, which is North Africa. Because just as I talked about, Egypt is in this kind of weird place where it's the Middle East and it's Africa. Actually, all of Northern Africa is kind of like that. So Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, and Egypt are all Arabic-speaking majority, Muslim majority countries that are African and Middle Eastern by default of speaking Arabic, but with also African groups like we've talked about, the Berbers and other African groups there. So Obama invaded Libya, and Libya with NATO and a lot of the complications that's happened in Iraq with Bush is actually very similar to what's happened in Libya. In fact, Libya is still having a civil war right now, which has created a massive refugee crisis and has been quite problematic. Afghanistan and Pakistan, by the way, some people brought this up, I needed to mention, that's not the Middle East. They can be brought into the discussion because they are Muslim majority, and the situation in Afghanistan, especially during the Cold War, drew in a lot of people from the Middle East. But if you look geographically, Afghanistan, Pakistan are more or less in Asia, okay? And they're not Arabic. Now, neither is Iranians. Iranians are Indo-Europeans, but they start spilling into another history. So I would not label them as Middle Eastern, okay? And something that I just wanted to also mention up, and this is my last thing, and I know this announcement's a little bit long, but it's important. Most Arabs are Muslim, but most Muslims are not Arab. The largest Muslim country demographically is Indonesia, okay? Southern Thailand has lots of Muslims, a Muslim majority. Malaysia is a Muslim majority. Southern Philippines, Muslim majority. China has over 20 million Muslims. So the Islamic world is mainly not Arabic speaking. And that's something that I wasn't able to really properly convey in this week, I think, in my question and through this class. It's difficult sometimes to really try to draw in so much of the globe and all the topics we're talking about and how this all fits in together. I fail you at times doing this, and I'm sorry. I've been trying to think of how to polish all of this up and make it a little more smoother for everyone. But I hope that you take strong interest in these subjects. The one thing that I always say is, okay, you may never go to the Middle East, you may never travel there, maybe it doesn't concern you, but the United States, I think it's very clear to all of us that the U.S. has been very involved, and in fact most parts of the world. So learning about world history has been, I hope, a very a liberating idea for many of you to at least start to connect the dots and see that even if you're living in an isolated kind of world for whatever reason, that the United States is not isolated, and that we're involved in many places, and that there are a wide range of views about how positive or negative that is. Okay? So, in any case, I hope you're all happy, healthy, and well. I know we're all doing the best we can. Contact me if you need me.